From Texas, Mr. Session is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Chairman Powell, thank you very much for taking time to be with us. This is important to the American people who hear our questions. This is important for us as we weigh and measure and gauge your input, which we believe is exceptional. I've stated that to you in the past, that I believe that we need to have confidence in what you're doing. Today, I'd like to, if I can, without dissecting your thinking, use some of the words that you have provided for us today to see your thinking. You had stated that as it relates to the Fed, quote, "We don't give advice to agencies." Now, that's a quote from you today. We don't give advice to agencies. Do you think that advice is different, which I do, than tools which you have to do your job? But I consider part of what you do best, perhaps the Fed, is advice. Can you help me to understand we don't give advice to agencies?
Well, so I think particularly on fiscal matters, fiscal matters affect people's lives. It affects industries and people and tax levels and spending. That in our system is the province of elected people. And for someone who's an appointed person who hasn't stood for election and has a very narrow mandate, I just think that's not appropriate. If we're going to wander into those kinds of things, then what would be the case for our independence? If we're going to be involved in every political issue that isn't directly connected to our work, then why would we be independent? We should just be another agency. But we have this independence, and I think to preserve it, we need to stick to what we do and resist the temptation to work on every problem, even the ones that are not assigned to us.
Well, let me say thank you for the answer. You do know, however, as we were talking about student loans, it's a rather large amount, about $1.2 trillion that is out there. You stated that you believe that would likely be dealt with in legislation. Now, that's what you said, likely to be dealt with in legislation, student debt. I think even private advice, not within your tool structure, but this advice that we're trying to land on, would be really important, because it will be, the way I see it, the next large hit to inflation. And this is why Republicans, or at least this Republican, says that I believe that this administration, the Democratic Party, are making friends with inflation. They are using the toolbox that they have of politics and money and spending policies to make friends with inflation. So my point would be to you, I sure hope that someone could send an unnamed memo to someone saying that you have an opinion, if you have an opinion on that. Next point, we have had some discussions about unemployment. How is unemployment calculated?
So you have to be actively looking for work within the last month to be and not have a job to be unemployed. If you're not looking, then you're out of the labor force, and that's so you're not participating in the labor force. So those are the factors.
So what we want to do, some members of this committee have wanted to look back and to say, well, perhaps under President Trump it was 3.5%. Now we're 3.6%, so not a big difference. And yet the huge number of jobs that are available is really the factor. When there are not jobs, that is a problem. But to simply say, well, Trump was 3.5, now we're 3.6. Everything is fair, it's all done. I think the other advice I'd love to have you have from the Fed is to someone about getting people back to work. Because today, the government has given zero instructions for federal workers to return to work. And I think that it is causing a mindset among many, we don't need to go to work, thus reflected in 3.6% unemployment and millions of jobs awaiting. Mr. Chairman, thank you for taking time to be here. It's my hope that you would find in your toolkit advice that becomes perhaps more important, and I thank you, sir.